There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you, honorable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precincts of Parliament, and it constitutes a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, will apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything that is said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when they are recognized to speak. The microphones are very sensitive and will pick up noise which may disturb the attention of other members. When members are recognized to speak, you must please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which is an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in this regard. And when using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. We shall now proceed to the order, which is debate on vote number 35, Science and Innovation Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Honourable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Our Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Honourable Putumana Mela, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Technology, Ms. Nompendulo Mkhwachwa, and all members of the Portfolio Committee, our Director General of the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Philip Joacha, and all his senior managers, representatives of all our institutions in our national system of innovation, honorable members. The central focus of this year's budget vote of the Department of Science and Innovation, the DSI as we call it, is that of accelerating the reversal of the legacies of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, whilst addressing critical transitions required in the context of a rapidly changing world, shaped by climate change, technological transition, and new shifts in the global economy. Against the background of this wider context, our budget vote is guided by the 2019 White Paper on Science, Technology and Innovation and the Decadal Plan, which was approved for implementation by Cabinet in March 2021. The Decadal Plan foregrounds the major societal grand challenges facing our nation. I must emphasize that our goal is to ensure a just transition in both the traditional economic sectors of our economy, as well as to lay the foundations for the emergence of new economic sectors. Honorable Chair and honorable members, the key focus area of the DSI in 2022 will be to vigorously support the government's economic reconstruction and recovery program, the ERRP, building long-term national capacity to deal with COVID-19 and future pandemic threats, securing higher levels of public and private investment in South Africa's research, development, and innovation, supporting revitalization of existing sectors or industries, the exploitation of new sources of economic growth, building of a capable state, and support for inclusive education and skills development. In line with our stated goal to support innovation in South Africa's energy markets, I'm pleased to say that we have launched the Hydrogen South Africa Roadmap to unlock the potential of new sources of clean energy to facilitate a just transition from a carbon-intensive to a carbon-neutral economy. At the same time, we continue to modernize existing sectors, such as mining, through support for research and development, both to ensure a safer working environment for miners and to increase the lifespan of mining in the country. In addition, we are also playing a vital role in beneficiation of the minerals economy. Through the South African Mining Extraction Research, Development and Innovation, which we call in short SAMEDI strategy, we have invested 226 million rands towards the modernization of the African mining industry. In partnership with Anglo-American Platinum, Mambili Energy and Engine, in October 2021, we initiated a feasibility study on the Hydrogen Valley and identified 9 catalytic projects across the mobility, industrial, and building sectors in the first phase of the hydrogen economy program. In terms of platinum contribution, the study has projected a contribution of up to $70 million to the platinum industry in South Africa by 2030. Through the implementation of the South African Hydrogen Valley Corridor, which covers the Johannesburg Hub, the Mogalakwena, Limpopo, and the Durban-Richards Bay areas, we have the potential to create 14,000 jobs and indirect jobs per year by 2030. And of course, by 2050, also the upper number, potentially contributing between $3.9 billion to $8.8 billion to the South African GDP. I must indicate that the launch of the world's biggest hydrogen truck by Anglo-American Platinum at the Mogalakwena mine in Limpopo on the 6th of May 2022 is an indication of the potential that South Africa has to become a significant global player in the hydrogen economy. In line with our commitment to supporting existing industries to meet South Africa's climate mitigation targets, we will further develop technologies to reduce emissions from coal-fired boilers in the cement, energy, steel, and paper and pulp industries through to coal CO2X project. To date, we have invested 50 million rands, I'm pleased to say, towards this project, which has allowed local small, medium, and micro enterprises to put in place partnerships to demonstrate the potential of flue gas conversion technology at the PPC cement plant. We continue also to identify, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, we continue to identify grassroots innovators, especially women and youth-led enterprises in South Africa, and assist them to enhance their innovation and skills through a range of interventions, including funding and business development support towards pre-commercialization. We have also made significant strides through the Technology Acquisition and Deployment Fund in facilitating the market entry of South African local innovations that can improve the delivery of basic services by government and municipalities. And this is key to strengthening local and district level governance, and of course to support the presidential-led district development model. To support municipalities in driving an innovation-led local economic development agenda, we have initiated the Innovation Champions for Local Economic Development program, which will be rolled out to all 44 districts in the country in support of the district development model to ensure that innovation is rooted at the grassroots level. We've supplied and funded over 200 young emerging innovators through our Living Labs program in township and rural communities in KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and the Free State. Our flagship technology stations program continues to be a key cross-sectoral, broad-based technology support program for companies, especially SMMEs and potential entrepreneurs, increasing the spatial footprint of innovation in the country. The 17 technology stations at 13 universities of technology and comprehensive universities across the country have provided technological support, including small batch production and developing prototypes to approximately 2,000 SMMEs. We've made significant progress in the agricultural agro-processing value chain development through implementation of our agricultural bioeconomy innovation partnership program. We have also intensified our agricultural research efforts and introduced new smart and climate-sensitive agriculture technologies in a bid to ensure food security and the modernization of the South African agricultural sector. We are also increasing our support for research and development activities in veterinary research in a bid to tackle persistent animal diseases and threats such as foot and mouth disease. Whilst through our Department of Higher Education and Training, we are working on increased training of veterinary practitioners at different levels. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, we have made tremendous progress in developing South Africa's domestic vaccine manufacturing capability, whilst at the same time strengthening our epidemiological surveillance and strategic decision-making capability on the strength of the COVID-19 National Policy Data Observatory, which is hosted by our Department of Science and Innovation. On the manufacturing side, we're at an advanced stage of establishing Africa's first COVID-19 mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub with strong public and private sector participation, backed by the World Health Organization together with its COVAX partners. This groundbreaking initiative has been hailed by the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, as a pioneering trend-setting innovation for the rest of the world. As part of building South Africa's capabilities for vaccine manufacturing, BioVac, which is a public-private partnership between the South African government and the BioVac Consortium, we've entered into a strategic partnership with Pfizer BioNTech to produce approximately 100 million doses of Pfizer BioNTech mRNA vaccine annually. I must say that we see this platform as laying the ground for developing the use of mRNA technologies to develop novel vaccines and therapies for other types of afflictions, including cancer, cardiovascular, and autoimmune diseases. In order to respond to the local and continental demand for COVID-19 testing and to reduce our dependence on imports, we established a fund which led to the development of two novel COVID-19 diagnostic tests, one by the Medical Diagnostic and the other by Cape Bio. Both of these diagnostic tools have been approved by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAPRA, I am pleased to say. Honorable Chair and honorable members, the recent devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal and other parts of our country reminded us of not only the threats posed by rapid climate change, but also highlighted the vital role of science, technology, and innovation in its mitigation and the adaptation of our communities to these new realities. During these unfortunate floods, we managed to leverage the existing infrastructure and investment made in our national system of innovation by providing critical input using remote sensing technologies, in particular satellites, to provide imaging for accurately targeting water flow patterns, its effects on transport infrastructure systems, and data for better spatial planning. The input made by both the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, the CSIR, and our National Space Agency, SANSA, has been exceptional, working together with other government departments, providing decision support tools, and working closely with the Water Research Commission. The work spans from road and bridge infrastructure assessments to the Coastal Vulnerability Tool and Index, which we have developed, which is an interactive decision support tool and integrated geospatial flooding index for coastal cities and town development, and is linked into the South African Risk and Vulnerability Atlas. Work includes input on access to health facilities, to water quality monitoring and infrastructure. Available for immediate use also, I am pleased to say, is a decentralized mobile water and wastewater treatment system that is used as an emergency or temporary treatment system directly from source. Honorable Chair and honorable members, this is science, technology, and innovation at its very best, at the service of society and at the service of our people. For this reason, we will continue to invest significantly in research and development that builds the adaptive capacity and resilience of some economic sectors to climate change impact. This includes heightening our research and development activities in urban and rural spatial planning for future human settlements, although much more public funding is still required for science, technology, and innovation in our country. One of our major preoccupations is to develop a roadmap for science, technology, and innovation for a secular economy, given the pressure of finite natural resources and sensitivity to global warming risks. Ziningi izinto esizilahlayo engabe sibuye sizithathe mase sizisebenzisile siziphendule futhi sizilungise kabusha ukuze zibuye zisebenzeke. Lokhu esithi i-secular economy ngesilungu. Through the Innovation for Service Delivery Program, funded in partnership with the European Union and National Treasury, we have demonstrated pilot technologies and innovations to improve the delivery of basic services by our municipalities. I'm proud to say that in partnership with the South African Local Government Association, we have expanded the number of municipalities participating in what we call the Municipal Innovation Maturity Index, which is now digitized and measures the capability and readiness of local government to adopt innovation and technology. Through the South African National Space Agency, South Africa has been designated, I am very happy about this as well, to host one of the 24/7 regional space weather centers in Hermanus in the Western Cape by the International Civil Aviation Authority. We will officially launch the center in October this year. The launch of this capability will provide South Africa with the opportunity to showcase the value of science, technology, and innovation, and to attract the region and international partnerships to utilize the newly constructed Space Weather Center. Significantly, we've also launched 3 locally produced nano-satellites as part of South Africa's new maritime domain awareness satellite constellation. The satellites will detect, identify, and monitor vessels in near real time in support of the South African Maritime Domain Awareness Strategy. We have invested over 30 million rands in the development of this high-tech capability. Ngesintu nje esilula, sesizokwazi manje ukuthi sibe nobuchwepheshe bokubala ukuthi ngakho imikhumbi edobayo noma yenze eminye imisebenzi la olwandle olugudle izwe lakithi. Sikwenza lokhu singahleli olwandle kodwa sihlelele phezulu sibuka ukuthi izinto zenzeka kanjani kuyilwandle ezakhelene nezwe lakithi. Honorable Chair and honorable members, the South African and Australian governments are co-signatories to co-host the Square Kilometre Array Observatory Array telescopes and associated infrastructure to the value of €2 billion over the period 2021 to 2030. Through the Square Kilometre Array, we will be producing a whole new generation of science and scientists, many of whom are now being trained in South Africa. Our South African companies and the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory will benefit immensely from the rolling out of this infrastructure, which includes the building of the SKA Exploratorium in Carnarvon in the Northern Cape. The initiative is expected to boost science awareness and outreach, stimulate science tourism in the region, and create employment. In particular, we will also focus on ensuring the production of more Black and women scientists and specialists on this front. And I want to say, my primary aim and goal as the minister is to ensure that we drive an overarching transformation project in the science, technology, and innovation space so that we are able to affirm Black South African as scientists and researchers, as well as Black women in particular. This is one of my priorities as minister in this department. The Meerkat telescope, built by South Africans, does great scientific work and will continue to do so until it is fully integrated into the SKA in the next 5 to allow me to share with you our plans and upcoming programs for the next 2 years of this administration. Through the digital plan, we've identified the digital economy as one area in which we are going to channel our resources. I've also instructed, I'm pleased to say, the National Skills Fund under the Department of Higher Education and Training to support this by prioritizing training in digital skills, especially for our youth. I have also targeted monies from some of the sectors to also elevate investment into training in the digital economy. We have identified 6 foundational digital domains on which South Africa should focus its resources for the next 10 years. These domains include artificial intelligence, robotics, and cybernetics, augmented virtual and mixed reality, modeling and simulation, blockchain and cybersecurity, the Internet of Things, and so on. All these developments will be implemented as part of the foundational digital capabilities research program of my department. We are currently developing a business case for the establishment of a national solar research facility that will support the development, commercialization, and deployment of solar-based technologies for application in both the solar power and fuel sectors. More details will be shared in this regard. As part of ensuring greater whole of government and whole of society innovation, we've already begun with a new institutional architecture to build better coordination, cohesion, and direction in how science, technology, and innovation resources are used. Firstly, we have already begun with the work of the standing ministerial level Science, Technology, and Innovation Committee, involving key ministries and chaired by myself, with the authority, of course, of the President. Secondly, the President of the Republic will host an annual Science, Technology, and Innovation Plenary, which will include business, government, academia, and civil society. This will place the science, technology, innovation issues at the center of our national development agenda. We are also leading the open science policy development process to develop a clear vision and rules of the game. To encourage the private sector to invest in research and development, government has extended the current tax research incentives dispensation until the 31st of December 2023. We are doing this in order to ensure that there is certainty and planning around research incentives. Beyond this, we firmly committed to leveraging both public and private resources to increase gross domestic investment in research and development as a percentage of our gross domestic product, with the aim of achieving the National Development Plan's target of 1.5% by 2030. As I conclude, South Africa will be the first country in Africa to host the World Science Forum, which is a biennial international conference series on global science policy, which brings together leading scientists, researchers, private sector players, civil society, and global media to discuss the challenges facing science and societies in the 21st century. I invite you all to this hybrid event which will be held from the 5th to the 9th of December 2022 in Cape Town. The DSI's total budget is 9.1 billion rands for 2022-23, up from 8.9 billion rands in 2020-2021. The majority of the department's budget is spent on transfers to entities, with the National Research Foundation receiving the single largest share. Honorable Chairperson, I would like to restate that the DSI is steadfast in its commitment to the full utilization of science, technology, and innovation to support the sustainable and inclusive development of South Africa's society and economy, with particular emphasis on the marginalized and the poor. The true purpose of science, technology, and innovation lies in the quest of securing and enjoying an equal human freedom for all our people in a vibrant democracy, free of hunger, alienation, prejudice, and ignorance. It is a science truly at the service of society. Mangiphethe mphathi wohlelo sesihlalweni ngokuthi ngibonge kakhulu umongameli wezwe lakithi ubaba uCyril Ramaphosa no-Deputy President kanye nozakwethu esingabe esigungwini sikahulumeni kuzwelonke ngokungelekelela kwabo kanye nokusebenzisana kahle nesekela likangqongqoshe uManamela kanye nekomiti lasephalamende. Ngicela ukubonga nowakwami kanye nestaff sami ofisini kangqongqoshe kanye futhi ngibonge nomqondisi jikelele uDokotela uPhil Mjwara kanye nabaphathi asebenza nabo kulomnyango nabo bonke who are in the boards and executives and staff at our entities and institutions nabo bonke nje sisebenzisane nabo ukuze sikwazi ukuthi sifike la. Ngalamazwi ke sithi lo hulumeni olokhongolose uyakwazi ukubaleka kwezobuchwepheshe ekwenzeni impilo zabantu bakithi zibe ngcono. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson and honorable members.
Well, thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Mkachwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable members, Minister Nzimande Manamela, members of the National System of Innovation, members of Parliament, but most importantly, citizens of South Africa, Sanbonani. Before we continue to debate this budget vote, we as the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation unequivocally state that we are appalled by the repulsive and nauseating behavior of the University of Stellenbosch student who urinated on a fellow student's belongings. The committee, just having visited the University of Stellenbosch on the 16th of February of this year to receive a briefing on the very subject of the transformation journey at the institution, is now more than ever convinced that much more work has to be done at that institution, and in fact, our visit was qualified. These blatant acts of racism and disrespectful attitudes unleashed on Black students is an insult to our hard-fought democracy and should be condemned to the fullest and not be tolerated at our learning institutions. The committee reiterates its stance on advancing the transformation agenda, which emphasizes non-racialism and inclusiveness, and will continue to vigorously monitor and pay robust oversight in the realization of this transformation journey at the University of Stellenbosch, amongst other institutions. We note and welcome the suspension of the perpetrator and want to implore that this matter be subjected to the due disciplinary processes of the institution and that justice must prevail for the affected student. We call on the university to ensure that the affected student immediately receives mental health support. In fact, there are many in the institution who may have been affected and triggered by this racially charged incident, and they too must receive mental health support. We should continue on a daily basis in our different areas of work, strive to do our part to ensure inclusion, justice, dignity, and combat racism in all its manifestations. The agenda on need to transform institutions of higher learning to make them non-racial, non-sexist, inclusive, and intersectional spaces does not exist in isolation to the need to expand and transform the national system of innovation regarding human capabilities, the institutional landscape, and research systems as articulated in the white paper of science and innovation. Honorable Minister Nzimande, I'm glad that you want to have a broader approach to transformation in science and innovation, because in November 2021, I was invited to the National Research Foundation to present an award at a ceremony where the NRF was recognizing qualifying researchers and institutions for the years 2020 and 2021 in several categories, including NRF A and P rated researchers. Before I express my concern and what I witnessed at these awards, perhaps let me begin by clarifying what an A or P-rated scientist or researcher is. Honorable members, an A-rated scientist would be those who are unequivocally recognized by their peers as being leading international scholars in their field for high quality and impact of their recent research outputs, whereas P-rated scientists or researchers would be defined as young researchers, usually under the age of 35, who have the potential to become leaders in their field. Now, as I sat through the NRF awards that were acknowledging A and P-rated scientists, I became alarmed and discomforted to observe a very linear pattern of recipients. The makeup of the collective of recipients that received awards as A or P-rated scientists was not intersectional, not inclusive, nor representational, speaking against the founding provisions of our Constitution that remind us that this democratic state was founded on the values of non-racialism and non-sexism. It was only when we were looking into P-rated scientists that we began to say a bit of color. In fact, I would say, Honorable Minister, a drop of color. Now, ways in which we can address the lack of representation in science, technology, and innovation is by ensuring access to higher education, ensuring success within the space, ensuring funding for postgraduate studies, and being intentional about awareness and recruitment. And we must, as a portfolio committee, of course, note the efforts of the department in this regard, but call on acceleration in realizing this. Honorable Manamela, it remains our priority to raise concerns on the transformation of science and innovation in placing it as a science for the people, by the people, with the people. Because contrary to the beliefs of some, and they will come and follow in the debate, contrary to the beliefs of some, science and innovation is not an elitist department, or while it ought not be an elitist department, as it is critical in being a catalyst for the socioeconomic development of this country. Science and innovation ought to respond to the daily socioeconomic realities of the varying communities of South Africa, and so it does. And this we have collectively seen in the National System of Innovation's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. You see, the ability for South Africa's National System of Innovation to contribute to saving the lives of many was based on South Africa's historic investment in building national science, technology, and innovation capabilities. A further example of how these investments have built local capabilities is that in this year alone, the country has launched the Hydrogen Society Roadmap, which Minister has spoken to, which seeks to enable the country to participate in the global hydrogen economy that will assist with the journey, with the just energy transition and fulfill the global aim of moving to net zero carbon emissions in efforts to curb and mitigate global warming. Related to the challenge of global warming and climate change, we acknowledge the disaster of the floods in KZN, Eastern Cape, and Northwest. Masiti Kwezi families who have lost their loved ones, Dudwini, Agwehlanga, Lungehlanga, and to the other many families who are still looking for their loved ones, Inkosi Maibe Nani, and we really hope that through government intervention, will be able to find your loved ones. Honorable members, it is scientific innovations such as satellites for Earth observation used by the South African National Space Agency that provided the various agencies responding to the KZN flood disaster with images showing the impact of the flood. These images serve to assist not only with the immediate response efforts, but also the future planning in terms of remediation and rebuilding. We implore on the department and its entities to play as great a role as it played in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic in providing STI-dependent mitigations and solutions in response to the current floods and the overall climate change crisis that the country is experiencing. These investments in the sector have yielded testaments of how science and innovation is critical in the inclusive development of a capable and developmental state, and how in placing science and innovation as a catalyst for the socioeconomic development of this country, it would be important to instill a culture of valuing STI and integrating it into government planning and budgeting at the highest levels, thus making the finalization and implementation of the decadal plan quintessential. We must reiterate in this august house that we, Honorable Minister, as the committee, will be supporting the department by hosting a joint committee meeting to look into how we can create an enabling and inclusive governance environment for the societal integration of science and innovation. Honorable members, we understand that the sector is required to do more with less, considering that whilst the budget allocation increases nominally by about 120 million, bringing it to a budget of 9.1 billion, when adjusted for inflation, there's actually a real decrease of 2.9%. And so while we share the concerns of the department on how this may impede on the scale, speed, and impact of the department and its entities' work, we must implore on colleagues to ensure that funds are used appropriately, effectively, and efficiently to avoid underspending. We remain in awe and support of the great work of the Department of Science and Innovation. And, just to speak on the work that's being done with Hydrogen South Africa, the type of collaboration we saw where within the department, it's across its entities working with institutions of higher learning to support the various pillars of HISA, that particular type of integration and collaboration of different government entities and public institutions is really phenomenal. And it's something that we really want to see take place across government at large, particularly in integrating science and innovation into government. Honorable members, in this month, where on the 8th of May, 1996, we adopted the constitution of this democratic South Africa, marking 26 years of its existence, allow me to dedicate this budget vote to the late Ndoni Mchunu. Ndoni Mchunu, who died on the 16th of April, 2022, at the age of 33, was the founder and CEO of Black Women in Science, a researchers program that aims to encourage the participation of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, careers, technology, mentoring, and education. Ndoni was a climate scientist and NRA-funded PhD candidate at the University of Witwatersrand. Her excellence was demonstrated by the number of accolades she held, including being selected as a Green Matter Fellow for her academic research in climate change and agriculture. She was also listed as one of the top 50 most inspiring women in tech in South Africa in 2017 by the Kingdom of the Netherlands and South Africa. She was one of the top 200 male and guardian South Africans in 2016. And there are many other accolades that Ndoni had. And I dedicate this budget to Ndoni in this month that we commemorate our constitution, because science, technology, and innovation must continue to assist us in bringing to life this globally lauded constitution, which seeks to address the structural inequities of this country, deeply rooted in apartheid's regime's total disregard for equality for all. The African National Congress moves for the adoption of the budget vote 35, and we commit ourselves, Minister, to supporting the ministry, the department, entities, and the sector at large in the implementation of these plans within the given budget. Long live the undying spirit of Ndoni Mchunu. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Tarabella Marchesi.
Thank you, Chairperson. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt pain about what happened with the student at Stellenbosch University. As a Democratic Alliance, we did release a statement this morning condemning the act, because we believe that this was uncalled for, and as South Africans, we can never have a situation like that happening in any university or in any institution of our learning. And welcome the swift response by the leadership of Stellenbosch, and we urge everybody to kind of give the leadership of Stellenbosch to be the ones who deal with the situation. I thank you. Honorable Chair, allow me to dedicate my budget speech to my late professor, Professor Walubu. I wish to honor his legacy in science and innovation. His contributions, particularly in the Faculty of Health Sciences in South Africa and internationally, resulted in groundbreaking research in several platforms like liver enzymes and many other areas. But what stands out to me was his development of Indigenous Knowledge System Unit, which we took over from the Medical Research Science, and which continue to function and carry his legacy at the University of Free State. I will forever be grateful to him as his former student and a colleague. Honorable members, it is on the shoulders of these scientists we stand. They exist in small pockets of our society, yet they pioneer research that impacts our society in manners that we can never comprehend. They make things happen. They do so with limited resources, but carry their responsibilities with intellect, vigor, and go beyond their scope of work. Honorable Chair, our science research fraternity work under challenging and unacceptable conditions. For instance, when we visited with the committee the square kilometer array, the Meerkat site in Carnarvon in Northern Cape, we discovered there that because of resources, they are unable to keep or retain their scientists. And that is purely because of the limited resources that they don't seem to have to be able to keep the scientists. In addition, they exist in a community that has a severely highly rate of fetal alcohol syndrome. And they took upon themselves to provide a science lab at the neighboring school in order to see scientists come out of Hanover. Equally so, in Sutherland, where the South African Astronomical Observatory site sits, it sits parallel to a society that is extremely impoverished with social ills. They allocated a portion of their budget to hire a mathematics teacher to teach at the nearby school. In addition to donating a science laboratory equipment and also a community center as a way of assisting the community. They could not exist in a space where there's no potential of emerging scientists within its midst. Without a mathematics teacher in Sutherland, chances of an astrology graduate coming out of Sutherland becomes almost impossible. What we are we are indeed a caring nation that extends itself to lend a hand to one another. What we lack is a caring government that can see a potential in investing in our human capital. A government that is not corrupt, that does not steal money, that is intended to better the lives of the poor. Young South Africans are full of talent. If that talent is not realized, they become the Elon Musk of the world, who tend to succeed elsewhere instead of their country of birth. Honorable Chair, budget cuts have a ripple effect. Its impact results into a chain reaction, which impacts the project funding, which means the time of the project is delayed. It impacts the number of researchers responsible to carry out the project because they are not certain if the funding will be adequate to carry the project to fruition, nor the funding to be optimal. It impacts on the spin-off companies that could be realized from such research, therefore impacting the potential of job opportunities that we desperately need for our youth. Honorable members, we are told during this very budget debate in 2020 that the budget cuts on science and innovation was due to the outbreak of COVID-19. Budget cuts in this vote have been going on for the last 20 years. What differs is which program is cut, is experiences budget cut, but it has been a continuous phenomenon. Yet, according to the OECD main science and technology indicators published in 2022 March, open quote, OECD economists continued to increase investment in research and development in 2020, despite the sharp decline in economic activities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The R&D expenditure in the OECD area grew by 1.8% in real time in 2020. With this represents a sharp slowdown compared to previous years when R&D was growing at a CA of 5% annually. It marks the first time on record in which a global recession did not translate into a drop in R&D expenditures. This reflects how investment in R&D have been an integral part of the response to the crisis, close quote. However, in South Africa, our target on research and innovation for 2008 was 1% of the GDP, with an increase of 1.5% in 2019. Now we forecast a 1.1% of the GDP in 2024, with a forecast of 1.5% in 2030, purely because our economy is not growing. In fact, we are regressing. Honorable Chair, the budget cuts, they come mostly because the targets sometimes are not met. But if you look at the budget of science and technology, that the targets sometimes they don't speak to the budget itself does not speak to the targets that have been set. They don't seem to be adequate enough. The budget is not adequate for those kind of targets that have been set. and therefore it sets the department into failure, whereby they are unable to be able to meet the targets that they need. And that is something that has to be looked at.
Honourable Member, your time has now expired.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Tambo.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Listening to the Honourable Zimande, one can only be left with immense depression. That a minister who should pride himself on a department that should lead development has degenerated to being a glorified host of seminars, symposiums, and discussions with the global world, while playing no meaningful role in contributing to its developmental trajectory. The white racist boy who urinated on the desk, laptop, and belongings of a black student in Stellenbosch did so precisely because we are a glorified hosts who play no meaningful role in science, innovation, or the economy. The racist white boy urinated on all of us because ministers such as Zimande and the president he praises have not led a government that warrants respect. And as such, those who are descendants of colonial conquest urinate on us because they do not respect African people, and they do not respect those who lead us, because those who lead us are happy with platitudes of presence and company of the developed world rather than developing ourselves. House Chair, the EFF wishes to state unequivocally that the continued underfunding of the Department of Science and Innovation is at the center of this country's dwindling developmental agenda. There is a deliberate attempt to undercut even departments that show a semblance of progress, potential, or capacity. And this committee and this department is suffering no different fate. With a 9.1 billion budget allocation for the year 2022-2023, which represents a real decrease of 2.95% when considering inflation, the marginal and superficial increases in some areas becomes meaningless. The decrease from 87.7 million to 34.2 million in the budget allocation for environmental innovation is a spit in the face of the calls for renewable energy and abandoning of fossil fuels, which has been used as a directionalist disguise to abandon the use of coal. The lack of budgeting, but also the lack of basic presence of the department in the social, economic, and technological terrain in the country is precisely what has left this country vulnerable to external forces guiding our approach to environmental issues and policy planning. This means the department is culpable in the junior status of South Africa in the innovation space globally. The report reads that as of 30 September 2021, the department had a vacancy rate of 23.3%, of which 17.4% is at the senior management level. This is a clear indication of the lack of direction which characterizes this department. As the entire world shifts towards mechanizing and increased technological presence in the lives of ordinary people, South Africa still grapples with challenges of spectrum allocation, access to internet, lack of access to water, and pit toilets, because the department that should lead innovation to eradicate exclusion and poverty is stagnant, and budget cuts are part and parcel of that reason. House Chair, the last time we voted on a budget for this department, we were extremely critical of the fact that the department does not seem to play even an advisory role on the trajectory of state-owned enterprises and how they can be leveraged for economic growth and innovation. It does not seem that much has changed since then, and the department is emulating the impotence of the president that sets its priorities. We are again in this report calling for cross-cutting departmental presence of this department's agenda and government, repeating something that simply does not come to fruition. The only priority that this government has supposedly emulated from the priorities of this country's president is to entrench a lack of transformation in the sector and unemployment. The department can't claim to be able to meet any of the targets it has set with the budget constraints imposed on it, meaning it is subjecting us to nothing but some thumb-sucked objectives presented to us for the sake of compliance. We therefore cannot in good conscience support this budget vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable M. Schlengwa. Is the Honourable Schlengwa on the platform?
Yes, Chairperson.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Honorable Chairperson, since the outreach of the COVID-19, we have been witness too many technological shifts in the way of the work. Socially interact and prioritize our social and environmental responsibilities. Our number one focus is putting considerable effort into addressing the shortcoming of our public health system. As a result, science and innovation has a crucial role to play in guiding the trajectory of South Africa in this regard. Science and innovation needs to play a more active role in developing our national and global emergency protocol, whereby factual information is the key driver to decision-making by the government with the development of the fourth industrial revolution and all its various tools. Information is readily available but not accessible to all. What is needed is a more complete strategy, and that divides into the detail into vision of the socio-economic needs in the country. They require supporting infrastructure across the economic spectrum, as well as proper emergency response mechanism. This is something that government, current NDP falls short of in many aspects. In the duty of these departments is to ensure the science and innovation become fully integrated in the decision-making of all citizens of this country. For example, we have seen many conspiracies which have led to such suspicion around the COVID-19 vaccine, which could be attributed to lack of overall understanding of the treatment. This is something that the government needs to invest into in over the foreseeable future so that people are not misguided into decision because they do not have all the relevant information readily accessed to them. Chairperson, we must strive to grow our capacity in the support of the committee recommendation regarding its transformation agenda. The development of transformation growth beyond the funding and undergraduate level of the education is the sought after reform for the sector. We are clear witness to the tragic underrepresentation of skills and capable women in the science, technology, and innovation field. Women who came from previous disadvantaged background need to be supported at postgraduate level. Abantu besifazane, Minister, uyabazi ukuthi le makhaya bafundile kodwa abanakiwe. Noma eseqashiwe-ke, eqashwe kanye nomyeni wakhe ade befunda naye, umyeni wakhe ohola kakhulu. Bona nje cha. Abanye baze bashintshe ngisho ama-career abo, Minister. Bayoba wokheshiya ey'tolo ngoba abaqashekile. Ngiyacela ukuthi le department ibanake, mhlawumbe ibe nayo ne-database yabo ukuze bazeke ukuthi bakhona khona le mambondweni oCeza, oKhukho, koDambuza. They are paid, noma sebeqashiwe, they are paid considerably less than their male counterpart and underrepresented at all industries. This
Honorable
does not
Member,
only.
your time
Yes.
is now expired.
The IFP support this budget. Thank you.
Honorable Member, your
Yes.
time is now expired.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Member. Your time is expired. Honorable Letzi, you have your hand up.
Yes, Chair, I just, I
Honorable
did not
Letsi.
want, yes, Chair, I did not want to disrupt Honorable Hlengwa there, but I was just asking that if the camera is not sitting right, can we switch off? Can we switch it off, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, honorable members, there is connectivity issues at the moment as we approach the load shedding that will take place. So you may switch off your camera if you are experiencing difficulties. It will definitely assist us so that we can complete this budget vote. Thank you, Honorable Letsi. The next speaker is the Honorable Boshoff.
Honorable House Chair. Thank you, Honorable House Chair. The Freedom Front Plus can be counted on to condemn racist conduct by students or others. Experience has taught us to confirm the facts before we make statements. A very unpopular person among members I have noticed is the imaginary trust fund kit, a phenomenon some members seem to think is found behind. It is, of course, very different, but it is easy, indeed, to dislike the beneficiary of someone else's labor who thinks highly demonstrated it. With such an imaginary trust fund kit, when such an imaginary trust fund kit fund fails, the downfall might be rather brutal. Having perhaps not utilized the benefits to cultivate the knowledge, skills, and attitude to benefit society, wealth may soon become departments which actually invest in the future and future economies. Many other departments create trust fund kits by expending money on people who did not contribute. The state's annual income is the trust fund. In theory, we are all beneficiaries when we are young. We all become contributors when we start working, and many of us become beneficiaries again when we are too old to work. This is besides benefits enjoyed by people of all ages and occupations. It is only when there are not jobs for everyone that some of us remain lifelong beneficiaries without contributing. Although this is never to be recommended, a well-managed trust fund or fiscus may be able to deal with it. Die doel van hierdie departement van wetenskap en innovasie is om oorspronklike, vernuwende denke van ekonomiese belang te bevorder. Dit is 'n omgewing waar binne stagnasie nie beteken jy staan stil nie, maar dat jy agterraak. Dit is dus 'n departement wat voorkeur behoort te geniet, selfs as die voordele nie dadelik sigbaar is nie. Die vraag is of 9,1 miljard rand uit 'n totale nie-rentebesteding van 1,6 triljoen rand voldoende is. Just to mention the entities within the department. The Academy of Sciences of South Africa works with 35,5 million rand. The CSIR, 3,46 billion. The HSRC with only 559 million. The National Research Fund, which also has to fund postgraduate students and various cutting-edge projects, 4,3 billion. SANSA, the space agency, 316 million rand. And TIA, the Technology Innovation Agency, which evaluates and funds technologically innovative and commercially viable enterprises, gets 583 million rand. In comparison, the Department of Small Business Enterprise receives 2,56 billion rand from Parliament. Wetenskap en innovasie as departement word nogal goed bestuur. Daar is probleme, soos toe die TIA die firma Kappa Biosystems heeltemal te goedkoop verkoop het, en ons kyk nog wie departement van die geld kan terugkry. En die heining rondom die SKA se 131,000 hektar wat steeds net 'n belofte is. Verder is kontinuïteit wat so belangrik in 'n kennisgedrewe ekonomie is, op die altaar van transformasie geoffer. Dit is soos genoem, is reeds genoem in Noord-Kaapse Onderwysdepartement nie kan bekos as die omgewing waarin hy werk nie. En dan energie as die visie net in daardie departement bestaan het. Suid-Afrika het baie hulpbronne, maar ook deurslaggewende beperkings. Tegnologie en innovasie maar net gebruik tot dit op is en dan bedel, of gaan ons belê wat nodig is om lewensvatbaar te wees? Volgens hierdie begroting word die minimum belê in die vertroue dat wetenskaplikes die wonderwerke wat nodig is, sal verrig. Ek dank.
Ons het niks gehoor man, jy praat te veel Afrikaans.
What is happening?
Maybe the chair is cut off.
Yeah, it's possible.
Honourable members, it seems as if the House Chairperson has been cut off. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, new chair who's taken over, honourable members of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, led by the chairperson, Ms. Nompendulo Mkacho, Director General of the Department, Dr. Phil Mjwaha, chairpersons and CEOs of the entities, and more importantly, our Minister, Honourable Dr. Blayton Nzimande, who I'm joining today in presenting this budget vote speech. Honourable Chair, I want to start with joining in members who has condemned in the strongest possible terms the incident that happened at the University of Stellenbosch. Through the Minister this morning, the Minister issued a statement joining in the condemnation and also welcoming the swift action by the university and that we are urgently waiting for the outcomes of the disciplinary committee that will be taking place. We've also instructed Higher Health to provide support to all the students who have been affected by this incident, and we hope that justice will prevail for those particular stories. And we've also observed that there are more stories that are coming out exposing the extent of racism at the University of Stellenbosch, some of these being disguised as initiation practices, and we hope that the university management, together with the community, university community, will reflect on all of these incidents and ensure that action is taken and also that we deal with racism wherever it rears its ugly head. And we believe that the university itself, together with the university community and all stakeholders on campus, are more than capable in whatever support that they will need we're at hand to provide. One of the critical roles of the Department of Science and Innovation is anchoring science amongst the people and making sure that science works for their development and for the economy. In order to achieve our overarching goal of using science, technology, and innovation to reconstruct and rebuild South Africa, we need a capable and responsive state. It is for this reason that we've adopted the district development model as a platform to enable innovation in districts and deploy innovation and technology solutions to districts and metropolitan municipalities. In implementing this, we continue to prioritize women and young people. For example, young people from TVET colleges receive training as part of the projects under the Hydrogen Society Roadmap that was launched earlier this year. Another initiative is our Innovation for Service Delivery program. Through this program, we will demonstrate and pilot technologies and innovations to improve the delivery of basic services in municipalities against the backdrop of the district development model. More specifically, this program will support the demonstration and adoption of technology solutions for improving access to quality basic services such as water, waste management, sanitation, and green renewable energy solutions. We take the pleasure of announcing that a project using ICT platforms for electronic participation in policy processes by young people will be piloted by 5 municipalities. It is our firm belief that we must deliberately use science, technology, and innovation to advance socio-economic transformation and the development of previously marginalized indigenous knowledge forms. Towards this end, the implementation of the Protection, Promotion, Development and Management of Indigenous Knowledges Act of 2019, also known as the IKS Act, will lead to the development of new policy initiatives. Related to this will be the development of regulations that will enable the implementation of the Indigenous Knowledge Systems Act and the establishment of a special service delivery unit that will serve as the authority regulating IKS sector. One of the most important developments in this regard is the setting up of institutional units for the recognition of prior learning in Indigenous knowledge system disciplines. This will be a novel contribution by our department for developing that Indigenous knowledge that resides outside the formal system of learning. Further, is the deployment of innovation infrastructure and innovation support of marginalized communities to increase innovation activities by locals to address context-specific local economic challenges. One such intervention is our living labs. By the end of 2021-2022 financial year, 5 living labs have been funded in townships and rural communities in KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Free State, supporting over 200 young emerging innovators. At least 1,000 young people will go through innovation support programs with varying numbers going through more advanced stages of the innovation support. They will gain ICT-related skills and receive support for innovations relevant in local contexts. At the start of 2022-23, partnerships have been entered into to set up 6 additional labs, bringing the total of labs that will be supported in this financial year to 11. We will be expanding with this to the Northern Cape province. We regard human capital development, and in particular, the development of young scientists and researchers as essential to the effectiveness and growth of our national system of innovation. Over a 5-year period, starting in 2017, we've awarded bursaries to more than 58,000 postgraduate students. This comprised 43,000 pipeline, which is honors, BTech and masters, and postgraduate bursaries, and 15,483 PhD bursaries. In the financial year 2021, a total of 5,000 graduates and students were placed in the DSI funded work preparation program, namely the government internships program and the youth volunteering program. Close to 19,000 researchers were funded by the National Research Foundation, managed program, and 41,635 research articles were published by researchers awarded grants in the same period. We continue to implement the new postgraduate funding policy with more than 6,000 postgraduates, comprising 2,200 being PhD and 4,200 being pipeline students targeted for support in the current financial year. We intend to provide support to 3,000 researchers in 2022-2023. And in line with our commitment to promote grassroots innovation for the period under review, we've supported a number of SMMEs that are Black-owned, that are owned by Black young people. And there is one success story, Honorable Chair, that drew my attention, being that of a young Black mechanical engineer, engineers Mohale Maleka and Tumelo Pule. Under the auspices of the AP Farms, Maleka and Pule looked at a way to upscale the vertical piper system for small-scale and commercial farming. Both were able to successfully test the prototype, and it is ready for commercialization. To commercialize the irrigation product. These innovative youngsters are now working with the University of Johannesburg, PITS, on the second phase to develop an all energy efficient solution and a more sustainable system with minimal cost and value for money during production. The innovation out of Malika and Pule's work is that it has the ability to store water within the design to reduce the amount of energy required to grow produce while simultaneously increasing the planting density per square meter, thus reducing costs and increasing production capacity. Honorable members, we, for the period under review, through our brand campaign, we undertook a public communication drive to help the public understand how an enabling national system of innovation can deliver solutions that addresses the country's socio-economic needs. Our campaign focused on highlighting the fact that the investments we're making today provides the opportunity for a better future, and that partnerships with the private sector and other key societal role players will enhance government's efforts to use innovation to improve the lives of our communities. The specific areas that the campaign focused on includes the need to enable viable and competitive industries and the need to modernize agriculture and mining, the need to develop sustainable energy and use of research to support evidence-based decision-making within government. We were, for example, able to demonstrate how the investments we made yesterday in research have enabled us to harness today's information to drive better decision-making during COVID-19. For this financial period until 2024, our brand campaign will focus on building the DSI's reputation as an enabler that is transforming the national system of innovation. In our engagement with the public communication, we'll also be highlighting current and future benefits of the investments we're making in such critical areas as health innovation, digital economy innovations, circular innovation, actions, and other key areas. In conclusion, honorable members, these are but just some of the interventions that we made during the period under review, and we remain mindful of the fact that there's still a lot more to do in order to bring science closer to the people. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Sabia.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to everyone. To build a science and innovation ecosystem government, fiscal allocation for science and innovation should be able to fund the vision of the department as contained in the white paper and the decadal plan. We debate this budget vote when our nation is still confronted with the HIV and AIDS epidemic. We are still confronted by the coronavirus pandemic. We recently experienced climate change floods, causing a national disaster, and we are experiencing an increase in unemployment and widening inequality. All these social, economic, and ecological challenges will continue to erupt at various points of human civilization. The competitive edge to adapt and to mitigate the impacts as a nation will also depend on the capacity and capabilities of our science and innovation system. We are in a period wherein various scientists have predicated as the time of pandemics. As African National Congress, kumele sishayele izandla i-Department of Science and Innovation, which has demonstrated world-class capabilities in supporting the nation COVID-19 response. Honorable Chairperson, it is important to note that we need to increase our doctorate graduates as a nation to increase our research capacity. We must also increase the number of doctorate academic capacity in our universities, as the average number of academics doctorates as the highest qualification in the sector in 2019, which was 47.7%. 2018. This reflects an increase in demand of PhD graduates in our economy as universities struggle to increase their doctorate capacity. The National Research Foundation plays a critical role in relation to postgraduate studies, and the department should continue to advocate for an increased funding to realize the NDP target of 5,000 PhD graduates annually. The budget adjustment due to prioritizing COVID-19 has declined. Postgraduate targets. We welcome the budget allocation to support 3,200 doctorate students and 10,900 postgraduate students studying their BTech, honors, and master's qualifications. Honorable members, this progress towards building human expertise for our nation. Honorable members, to increase research outputs, funding needs to be provided to increase, and government remains a significant contributor of research funding. And government remains a significant contributor of research funding. Government even increased research funding during the pandemic high period, which yielded evident outcomes. Honorable members, what are the lessons which we should take from the pandemic in relation of research funding and the impact research can have in addressing our challenges? We welcome the 4,700 researchers awarded research grants per year through programs managed by the National Research Foundation. It is critical that our research focus is also orientated to respond to our national objectives to create an equitable society. To advance socio-economic innovation, the budget will support 70 knowledge and innovation products added to the industrial development and green economy intellectual property portfolio. We welcome the focus of the department in supporting green economy initiatives, and we note the innovation which was launched by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa when the world's largest mine, coal truck powered by green hydrogen named Nugen in Mahalokwena PGM mine in Mopane, Limpopo. Sayibona kumabona kude ababukinda abangayibukinda bazoza bexoxelwe emateksini. This is a clear demonstration that our country can adapt to the changing world in an environmentally sustainable manner. Honorable members, this is an important focus if we are to prepare our economy to transition to a low carbon economy. Innovation will enable the country to be part of this development and participate in value chains rather than being users of technology, but be developers of technology. In our engagements with the various entities of the department, we questioned the capacity of early warning signs of our country and the role of the Department of Science and Innovation. The South African National Space Agency makes a critical contribution through the Space Weather Center, providing early warning systems to indicate how space weather could affect any technological system, such as satellite TV and satellite navigation technologies. These challenges require the department to work with other departments. Wonke ama-departments, ayikho ezosala eceleni, wonke. Iyalida science and innovation is to ensure that user departments have adequate systems to translate the data into actionable intervention to mitigate the impact of climate change disasters. Honorable members, the South African National Space Agency is breaking grounds for the nation. 3 local produced nanosatellites were launched in the United States. This demonstrated the opportunities South Africa can build on. It also reflects our ability to industrialize the economy if we increase investment in research and development. We have called on the department to expand the capacity to occupy a prominent space in the global satellite value chain. We have urged the entities supported by the department to expand skills development of science skills. This budget provides support for the Human Science Research Council with 321 million rand. The entity plays a major role in provided social sciences research, which shape policy in development and analysis of the social sector. We further urge the department and its entities to further support indigenous knowledge system innovation and acknowledge Technological Innovation Agency 30 million rand support for the Fela COVID-19 clinical trial. This is a collaboration by the University of Free State and the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine. which is a country and sub-regional first for a traditional medicine controlled clinical trials and clinical trials for COVID-19. Science and innovation should be promoted in our society, as this enables us to respond to challenges confronting the nation. As the African National Congress, we support the budget vote to continue to promote sciences in our country and to support innovation. Ngiyazibongela, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Subia. Honorable King.
Thank you, Chairperson. Colleagues and members in the science and innovation sector, we welcome the University of Stellenbosch for their swift action on the unintended consequence of racism that took place, and is reminded again how racialized policies has indoctrinated our youth and is fueled even today in policy. Scientific and technological advances have been long recognized as engines of rising prosperity and economic growth. While just over 2 years have passed since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and we move towards a new normal, we realize the restrictions enforced during the pandemic acted as a catalyst to drive change. The way research was carried out mutated rapidly as a result of pressure placed on the scientists brought on by the virus and its associated restrictions. In the meantime, 4IR technologies have offered the possibility of ordering food and medicine online and delivering it right at your doorstep. Mobile technology and artificial intelligence integrated data collection tools that can be used for contact tracing, symptoms monitoring, detection of outbreak, and risk assessments. Instead of face-to-face teaching and learning, universities and schools moved online using various technological platforms such as Canva and Blackboard. Researchers continue to use WebEx to organize conference, and employers relied heavily on Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams for video conferencing. Many of these platforms will continue to flourish long after the pandemic have come to an end. South African universities collaborated with international and national governments to produce personal protective equipment and ventilators. CPUT collaborated with the Western Cape government and the Department of Trade and Industry to develop and manufacture PPE for frontline workers and the general public. The University of Johannesburg engineering team designed and developed a portable 3D printed mechanical ventilator with a customized baseplate to simultaneously treat multiple patients. Countries with science, technology, innovation orientated global competitiveness strategies have sustainable competitiveness and long-term growth. A budget of 18.1 billion rand coupled with 0.62% of GDP expenditure on research and development, which in 2016 was 7.5%, is a drop in the ocean when we consider the South African research competitiveness and the technological output. This is substantiated with a 5.1 billion rand allocation to Program 4, Research, Development and Support. Once adjusted for inflation, represent a real decrease of 2.2%. The kleptocracy in our country have seen approximately 1 billion rand of tax-based money spent on the Zondo Commission to investigate lootings in state capture, estimated to have cost the country over 49 billion rand. Let's pause on this for a minute. Our people are faced with steep food price increases. 2 liters sunflower oil costing 100 rand, 2.5 sugar costing 55 rand, 2.5 flour costing 27 rand, and 2.5 kg maize meal costing 28 rand. To squeeze the purse even more, petrol and electricity prices have increased exponentially, making the cost of living unaffordable for those living from paycheck to paycheck and to ordinary citizens living below the living wage mark. Money lost to state capture and expenditure on the Zondo Commission could have been directed into research and development for food security and hydrogen, measures to mitigate and adapt to climate change, and innovative infrastructure development to relieve the tight squeeze purse of our fellow countrymen. So yes, Mr. President, science and technology is vital to bring about economic growth. This is achievable through foreign direct investment to promote and exchange scientific and technological knowledge and accelerate the national diffusion of imported technologies. South Africa's brotherhood with countries in BRICS have excluded Taiwan and Israel who have shown their commitment to share the technological advancements in healthcare, tech startups, and water and food security, all to the benefits of citizens and knowledge generation. This stance have once again shown that what's good for citizens of this country is not necessarily good for the ANC. All systems are in place at DSI and its entities. It just needs a reprioritized view and stance to ensure economic activities are science and innovation driven. How can this be done? The National Advisory Council on Innovation should play a pivotal role in the advice to the presidency to ensure that all government departments have synchronized priorities and measures in place to realize the economic reconstruction and recovery to offset the ticking time bomb of unemployment. Minister, there's a genuine fear that these cuts will damage the system irrevocably, and that once these are taking place, it will be beyond repair. However, Minister, racialized policy are chasing people out of this country who can do a meaningful contribution. And you don't have to take my word for it, Minister. You just need to ask Elon Musk why he left South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable King. Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. I was just having a bit of a struggle with my technology and setting it up. Honorable House Chair, in his State of the Nation address this year, His Excellency the President, Matamela Ramaphosa, stated that the role of government is to create a conducive environment for economic growth and job creation to happen. It is therefore the duty of government to incubate an innovation-led economic ecosystem that allows for exponential GDP growth through the exploitation of emerging disruptive technologies. House Chairperson, we are currently living in an epoch of the fourth industrial revolution. All these technological advancements are a critical component for the competitiveness of a nation's economy. Developed nations have distinguished themselves through innovation and due to the agility of adopting technological innovation as part of production and other uses. The question for us as a nation is whether we have accorded innovation the appropriate focus and support to address our socio-economic challenges. We should further ask whether our country has the innovation capability. The answer is yes. South Africa has the innovation capability. The limitation is the inadequate expenditure as a percentage of GDP, which the gross expenditure on research and development sits at 0.83% in 2017 and 18 to 0.75% in 2018-2019, but it is currently sitting at 0.62% of the GDP, which is a decline, while the target is 1.5% of GDP. Comparatively, our expenditure as a nation, inclusive of the private sector and public sector, is lower than other developing countries, such as Brazil, with an expenditure of 1.16% of GDP in 2019. It is therefore incumbent on government and the private sector to prioritize investment in our domestic research and innovation ecosystem. As a country, we have a relatively high innovative research output with an overall growth rate between 2005 to 2010 at 8.06%, which, if developed, some of the outputs can result in commercially viable enterprises, which will contribute to addressing some of our social challenges and contribute to economic growth. Commercialization is an important mandate of the department and its entities. In its program of technology innovation, this budget vote provides an allocation of 458.4 million to the Technology Innovation Agency. We support efforts by the department to strengthen the Technology Innovation Agency through a ministerial review to address, amongst other things, the lack of funding and a weak commercialization record, and benefits of innovation which are not evenly distributed spatially and demographically. The entity should be strengthened and more funding should be secured for the entity to attain its mandate of supporting the state in stimulating and intensifying technological innovation to improve economic growth and quality of life for all South Africans. We welcome the efforts of the department and the entities in partnering with the private sector in other projects. What we need to strengthen is our ability to crowd in investment to support different innovation to penetrate the market. We are seeing the steady growth of new markets in the effort to stave off the negative effects of global warming, such as electric vehicles, renewable energy, and power storage technologies. Major developments in the international stage, such as the war between Russia and Ukraine and the consideration of the NOPEC bill in the US, will accelerate the use of renewable energy sources and electric vehicles as oil prices soar to unprecedented levels. Our country stands at the precipice of being the front runner in exploiting the abundant resources of hydrogen power at our disposal in our energy mix. Venture capital investors should be encouraged to fund startups in these and other fields to harness the innovation potential of the country and to grow our economy through new economic sectors which can emerge. The department has targeted to generate 365 knowledge products, including published peer-reviewed scientific articles and the filling of applications for or the registration or granting of intellectual property rights. Intellectual rights protection is an important function the department should continue to provide through the National Intellectual Property Management Office. The department should further monitor the development of intellectual property in public entities, as these are at times not protected by institutions, resulting in individual commercialization, publicly funded research without public benefit. The recent coronavirus pandemic has demonstrated the fact that despite public funding research on the coronavirus, some of the publicly funded research has resulted in private innovation resulting to profit sharing being a priority. We welcome the department's initiative of working with the Industrial Development Corporation to increase funding support for innovation. House Chairperson, government can play a critical role in promoting domestic science and innovation. The Department of Science and Innovation and its entities have the capability to respond to numerous challenges confronting different government departments and state-owned enterprises. It is therefore critical that national departments, state-owned enterprises, provincial governments, and local government need to leverage science and innovation initiatives. A capable developmental state should be able to leverage its own human and technical capability to respond to challenges it is confronted with. Honorable members, artificial intelligence is transforming work as we know it. Various services in business processes are being undertaken by robots and other innovations. As a nation, how are we going to ensure that these changes do not become disruptive such that they worsen inequality and poverty? Honorable members, a critical process which is yet to be fully undertaken is the systematic integration of the Department of Science and Innovation and Higher Education and Training. The merging of these two departments is conceptually correct in order to strengthen the dialectical relationship of science and innovation and higher education and training. The minister was recently in the USA, California, Silicon Valley, and the area is a typical integrated system of research and innovation and access to finance relatively being abundant. We hope the department will also review other systems and indigenous systems for our own conditions. On health innovation, the medical device and diagnostics technology innovation cluster is an initiative we support as it aims to stimulate and intensify technology innovation within the sector, as well as creating an enabling environment in support of increasing the competitiveness of the industry. Key partners are the South African Medical Research Council, the industry associations, the Industrial Development Corporation, the CSIR, the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, the National Department of Health, and the Global Health Innovation Accelerator. These are the types of initiatives which the department should expand in different economic clusters, and the infusion of universities to ensure that all initiatives result to valuable skills development for the youth and women. And this is why the incident that would have happened in Stellenbosch University does not augur well for the project of building a cohesive society in general to pursue knowledge production that assists us in our economy. House Chairperson, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research plays an important role in the innovation ecosystem through fostering industrial and scientific development in the national interest through multidisciplinary research and technological innovation to improve the ability of the state to efficiently deliver basic services in fields such as health, education, social security, energy, and shelter to all South Africans. Recently, the CSIR launched software which addresses barriers of learning of learners to be able to read due to visual impairment, dyslexia, low literacy, and other special educational needs. The software breaks down these barriers by adding audio to publications and synchronizing it with the text in any of the 11 official South African languages. The CSIR has developed a zero liquid discharge technology to minimize the ecological footprint of acid mine drainage. Revenue generated from the resale of recovered minerals in the process will offset the running costs of the system, making it self-sustainable. Increasing research and development finance is an imperative to support industrialization efforts, and our scientists and innovators have demonstrated that they can respond to our national developmental needs. It is important to also state that the development of IP and knowledge production requires peer review as part of the route to market and ensuring that ideas are commercially viable. And so what Honorable Member Tambo asserts as talk shows by the minister and attending to all those without having outputs is incorrect, because the production of knowledge for commercial output requires peer review, and indeed you will have that happen in the process of attaining economic growth as part of the offsprings. The ANC supports the budget vote to ensure we support our country's potential in innovation and use it to develop and grow our economy. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, Honorable Tina Jumat. Let me start by thanking all those who supported this budget vote, and thank the Honorable Chairperson, Ms. Mkhatshwa, for the points that she actually raised. And also, as our Deputy Minister said, we did issue a statement earlier today condemning this incident at Stellenbosch University. And I have indicated in the statement I'm awaiting a fuller report from the university once they've taken all the actions that they have outlined. I also wish to point out that the point raised by Honorable Mkhatshwa about the need to play an important role in placing STI initiatives to tackle COVID-19. It's an important point. I also just need to emphasize that indeed we did a lot. Even the World Health Organization acknowledged that we creatively use science in our daily management of COVID-19 in a very creative way. We pursued a multidisciplinary approach. We set up very early in the epidemiology and its evolution of the epidemic genetic surveillance. We set up a scientific data observatory and attitude surveys that were led by the Human Sciences Research Council and the NIHSS, just to mention some of the things. To Honorable Makes, what I would like to say, by the way, it's not correct to say that the community of Carnarvon and surrounding areas where the SKA is are not benefiting. It's just not true at all. The very fact that we chose that site for SKA location was in itself an intervention to change that place, that it shall never be the same. We have many other initiatives, for instance. We've established an artisanal technical training center there. We've trained 50 SMMEs in entrepreneurship and other related skills. We've actually spent about 170 million rands on local suppliers And 90% of the staff employed there is actually local. But it's not only that. We are also using our technology stations, grassroots innovation, to support innovation both in urban and in other rural areas in our country. Now, sometimes I feel, with due respect, to respond to the EFF is not really worth it, because it looks like Honorable Tambo, since he was made a spokesperson, he's thinking about everything else other than what the EFF has deployed him for in Parliament. He seems not to even understand what we are doing. Just go and reread or just listen on YouTube on my budget vote so that you see how much work that we are doing. Mama oyilungu elihloniphekile le-IFP, ngiyavumelana nawe ngendaba yokuthi siqinise ukuthi abesifazane bangene kule mkhakha yezobuchwepheshe. That's why we have a Women in Science Award. And thanks to the IFP for supporting us. Honorable Boshoff, yes, we agree with you, as other members have said, our budget is not enough. We can do with much more money, but we are not sitting on our laurels. What we are doing, for instance, through the decadal plan and the establishment of the Interministerial Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation, we are pulling investment into STI from across government so that we are better able to coordinate and maximize the impact of those funds. We are also in the process of establishing the Sovereign Innovation Fund. Thanks also to Mamo Spear about emphasizing what we are doing on postgraduate studies and research on the green economy. Honorable King, I don't know, maybe we'll have to explain at some other stage. I heard you saying that the unintended consequences of the urinator at Stellenbosch. Was that unintended, what the urinator said? Maybe you'll explain to us, because I actually just found that a bit of a shocking statement on your part. Honorable Yabo, thanks for your comments as well. We are actually trying, as I'm saying, not trying, we are actually coordinating STI spend and mainstreaming science, technology, and innovation through our decadal plan. And we do want to say that with this budget vote, we are in for a very exciting financial year to actually achieve the goals of making science to serve our people better. As Honorable, our late President Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, that brings us to the end of the business of today. The House is now adjourned. I thank you.
Long live the chair.
You can sit down, Minister, sit down.